retail gets shorted. Now, when retail gets shorted, this shorting does make sense. Now, the idea of shorting is that you're betting on a stock, and you're betting that that stock will go down in value. So say, for example, the stock is at $50. You don't think the stock is good. The stock goes to 20. You were shorting, and so you make, let's say, $30. It went down by that amount. Now, there's a lot of gray area in this. Sometimes people would borrow or get stocks or get money on stocks that they don't even own. All sorts of odd stuff that probably should be illegal is part of this. But the reason that we're, of course, talking about this has to do with GameStop and has to do with the billions that various people lost as a result of making bad bets on GameStop. Now, what we're talking about here, of course, is Wall Street Bets, a Reddit group that decided to protect and save GameStop retail. Now, what I mean by this is it makes all the sense in the world that from the standpoint of video games, if you're buying video games and you are a brick and mortar store, then your business model will likely be under pressure. COVID, but even before COVID, there was a trend going towards this idea of buying video games basically online, whether it was an Xbox, whether it was PlayStation, or for that matter, whether it was on your computer. So the idea or the need to go to a game store became redundant. And more importantly than redundant, even buying consoles and whatnot, or for that matter, video games, even used video games, that stuff on some level became somewhat redundant. Now, the people in the market decided we're going to short that stock, and we're going to short that stock to Herculean proportions. Great. The thing is, just like anything else, this is a bet. And from the standpoint of a bet, bets are not flat facts. Bets are one of those things that can go one way or the other. Otherwise, it's not a bet. It's a certainty. And Wall Street's, they're dealing with bets. This, or multiple hedge funds, decided to bet against retail, against GameStop. Now, within the context of this bet, you have an equation, and that equation has to take into account all sorts of stuff. But basically, there are all sorts of things that can go in that can undermine even great analysis on a particular product or particular company. Floods, pandemics, you have fires, earthquakes, alien invasions, and disruptive technologies. And fact of the matter is the thing that makes it that bet is because you don't have infinite knowledge. You don't have absolute omnipresent omniscience. It's a bet. You try to do due diligence and you make your case in regards to whether that stock is going to go up or down. And in their case, they bet it was going down. What they didn't see is the disruptive technology basically saying, we don't like the fact that you are attacking and shorting this particular company and trying to destroy this company. And we want to protect it. That's not wrong. Now, this caused all sorts of hysteria because over the course of the week, they were losing billions of dollars a day. Meaning these hedge funds that were investing in these companies. One, I think Melvin, went belly up where they had to give Citadel Securities, the same company, by the way, that's backing up Robinhood, the application where a lot of these guys were making their trades on. Well, basically paid to get stock in those guys after those guys imploded for holding on to the GameStop stock and trying to short it. Now, keep in mind, when you own a stock, the value can go up. But the value, if you're trying to short a stock, the amount that you have to pay can be infinite. If I put $50 on a stock and the stock goes down to $5, fair enough. But at worst, I'm going to lose the $50. If you are shorting a stock, that number can go up tremendously. You had a stock for GameStop, I think it was like $10, and went all the way up to like $400, nearly 1,800% over the course of a week or so. And so the pain that many of those companies, Citadel Securities, or for that matter, Melvin, had to take, they call uncle. And they paid billions out. Now, this wasn't isolated, though, to just GameStop. This is also one of those things that has a broad market effect. Because they were shorting these guys with more stocks than even existed, apparently. And beyond it, the way they were shorting these guys, many of the people that were in the markets on some level might have been playing something similar and had to basically take out money to pay for the short positions that they that were just exploited. This is a fascinating story. Robinhood takes the provocative action to stop the ability for people to buy any more GameStop on their site. They also did this with AMC, but I want to focus on GameStop. They took the extraordinary step of allowing, let's say, the upper crust to continue in the way that they would continue with their trades. But for the other people who are on the Robinhood app or TD Ameritrade, stop them from being able to buy. Now that's profound. The responsibility at this point, you would think, would be to the people who are using that particular system, but not so much. The responsibility seemed to be to the people who they hung around, the members of their class. Keep in mind, the Robinhood app, despite the Orwellian name for the Robinhood app, the entire point of the app was to make the rich richer. You understand that? I know they're saying we're democratizing the trades and all this other stuff. That's language. That's not the reality of things. They made money off of you by either front running that stock and increasing the value, meaning giving you a less deal on that stock, or for that matter, selling your information to some of the other companies that basically can use it to make their trades. So this is not this kind of, oh, we're just doing our best thing for the society and we didn't. It's nonsense. They were already in the bag. And the fact of the matter is, one of their main investors, Citadel Securities, was one of the groups shorting the position. And Citadel Securities, one of the main investors for Robinhood, were getting mauled by those people using the Robinhood app in order to buy more of the stock. And so, yeah, it looks dodgy as all hell that the companies, or that Robinhood, or that some of the other companies were willing to basically stop and undermine small-time buyers who were investing into the market, doing nothing wrong, doing nothing illegal. They just wanted to buy and participate in the market, and they wanted to bolster that particular stock. There's nothing wrong with that. Anything more than there's wrong with them shorting that stock. And you get this weird situation where not only do they stop the individuals from being able to buy more stock, they allowed them to sell, and in some cases forcibly stole the stock from them. Isn't that mind-blowing? You go and you buy a stock. Let's say you buy, GameStop, and let's say it's at $150. And it goes to, let's say, $200. And as it starts to float down a bit, they start selling your stock off from somebody else's platform. So as the stock goes down, you and your stock, even if they don't forcibly sell it, start to lose money. They're stealing from you. They're stealing from people and doing this. And by the way, this is not entirely just hedge fund versus a populist, thing in Wall Street bets. There's an aspect of this where many of these companies, especially the moment that they locked human beings from being able to go in and buy additional stock for GameStop, others were allowed to buy. Meaning it's not just small-time investors that were getting in on this. You have other groups that were also trying to partake in this short-term volatility in the market. This is a very weird story. And they're, even to the point of Wall Street screaming for regulation because they lost so much money. Under normal circumstances, nobody all that much complains when Nancy Pelosi's husband buys a bunch of, or vests a heavy bullish position on Tesla, when Pelosi herself is going to be writing the legislation, likely, that would make a determination of whether that money is going to go to Tesla. Or a situation where somebody may mercilessly go after a company, finding out later that the person was shorting that company and had a position shorting that company. I'm saying the market manipulation stuff happens continuously, and typically nobody cares about it. Nobody cares under normal circumstances when John Q. Public loses his shirt because of a bad bet, or for that matter, when hedge funds move to or fro, and the market basically goes along with it, with those people either losing money or gaining money at the whims of the bigger investors. So cry me a river on this stuff. And that's basically what they were doing on CNBC, the media networks, basically boo-hooing that these small-time investors have gotten into the market. And some have even gone as far as saying, we need legislation. Think about that, Wall Street begging for legislation. Why? Because they want to rig it that much more to prevent the unwashed masses from being able to make their bets in the way they made their bets. This is an astonishing story. And honestly, part of the astonishment of it is how brazen, how overt they were at being entirely willing to subvert the financial process in order to protect their interests. It's as if they didn't understand what a bet was. They didn't know what that meant. They thought a bet meant a certainty. I promise you, ask many of the small-time investors that tend to put money in the stock market. It happens. It is indeed a bet. and every so often you do lose. And the idea that these guys didn't seem that they were supposed to lose looks horrendous on the market, if not honest. I've been watching people cry about this for about a week, but this is quite possibly the worst take ever on the GameStop issue, and it was on MSNBC. Now, the people who are boo-hooing and calling for financial regulations, okay, fair enough. They're flustered. They lost a bunch of money in the market. And they're annoyed that they lost money in the market. They're annoyed that these small-time investors decided to go in and buy a particular property. They're annoyed that these guys just wouldn't let GameStop go belly up and bust. They're annoyed about all that. Not to mention losing billions. So I understand that, right? That makes sense to me. Yeah, they're going to be hypocrites about it. Yeah, they're going to whine and moan and bitch. No, Janet Yellen is not going to recuse herself despite getting $800,000. I consider that to be a bad take. But of all of the takes that I've watched on this is quite possibly the weirdest, where he makes the point of saying that the biggest loss is not the billions, it's the human capital of young men depressed, looking at their phones, trying to see the market. No, seriously, he went there. The issue with the Robinhood stuff is that guys are going to be staring at their phones depressed for hours out of a day because they don't understand the market. The people on Wall Street bets did understand the market. They did understand what they were doing. John Q. Public is typically not coddled when they lose money in the way that they typically lose money. Don't start now at this point. And from the standpoint of whether or not they understood the market or not, that's almost irrelevant to the process. You guys have spent the entire week telling people that the fundamentals of GameStop hasn't changed and that the stock is going to plummet back to earth. So fine. You've given the counter response. You've given the counter information thoroughly and verbosely. If the people still, after that, decide to buy the stock, you have a hard case to make on why you should be standing in the way, frankly, at all. And there's no situation where these guys should have been able to shut down their platforms, the people who wanted to buy that stock, while leaving the platform open for people who wanted to, leaving the platform locked from people who wanted to buy more of the stock, while leaving other platforms and other people in the market could buy. That's appalling behavior. But this guy, that's not what he was bothered by, per se. His issue is the human capital decline. Welcome to the soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is a Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, and subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. This content is brought to you by you, and I appreciate you the opportunity for allowing me to do it. I wanted to give it an overview, just in case somebody's head was in the ground or something to that effect. But this story is fascinating. This story really is fascinating. And on an odd level, infuriating, because it gets across that the game or the rules are rigged. If it's indeed a bet, then how are people moving heaven and earth to protect these oligarchs, these people of a particular class? And they seem to be bending over backwards to do so. And I got to be honest, Janet Yellen not recusing herself is horrible. I mean, I know they want to give it that she's above any kind of malfeasance in regards to the interactions or appearance of corruption. But I'm telling you, she is not. She is not. And to hear that she got $800,000, but then she's going to be advising Biden on his activities concerning the same place that gave her $800,000. That is problematic on his face. MSNBC and this gentleman is giving an argument as to the problem of all of this that he sees. Yeah, that he sees. Because I got to be honest, he's the only one that sees this very specific problem, especially in the context of GameStop. I have no idea what the hell this guy is saying, but if you could figure it out, definitely put it at the bottom because it is bewildering to me. Let's hear the clip. MSNBC.
Maybe you're learning here. Maybe it's fun, fine. Maybe it's a movement. But be prepared to lose 80 to 90% of it. And if it's still worth it, then have at it. But the biggest loss of capital here will be the human capital of young men who are sitting and staring at their phone and watching the price of Bitcoin or the price of AMC. and ask yourself, would you be better off taking that 1, 2, or 3 hours a day and working out, trying to form relationships with mentors, with romantic relationships?
I don't remember the argument being made or somebody coming on television saying, hey, these hedge funders really need to think that do they really want to spend 1 or 2 or 3 hours of their day looking at a computer screen trying to make cash? Or do they really want to be pumping iron? Ugh. This is a weird argument. The human capital argument? Are you really going there? That's the argument you're going to make? That people have better things to do with their time than try to make money on the market? Good luck with that argument. Good luck with that argument. Did you realize, right, that people, if they're playing the market, they may be playing the market because they think they can win. And in sense of thinking they can win, it's very possible that they need money from what they're trying to win, especially if these guys aren't big-time investors. Also, the idea that you assume that people are just going to be sitting there staring at their phones constantly is a little weird. Is it possible for people to invest a bit of time into playing the market and working out? Or for you, is it just a one or the other? This is a very bizarre argument. I hate to tell you this, buddy, but sometimes people have to spend a lot of time working in order to get revenue to pay for things like their house, their car, or their kid, and stocks. In some cases, especially people who might be doing intense trading during the course of the day. And again, not talking about these kind of big time traders, but maybe the extra money does them good. I'm just saying. And either way, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant because they have every right to play the market every bit as much as you do or anybody else of a particular class.
With people at work, getting great at something so you can be the person on the other side of the trade. The greatest loss in capital here is from young men who are more prone to gambling addiction, who don't understand the markets. I think we are setting ourselves up similar to how there's a ton of young women out there who became very depressed by sitting in their rooms looking at Instagram. Self-cutting and self-harm skyrocket. I think you are going to see an explosion in young male depression, and I
think about what he's saying. I mean, this is a mind-blowing thing that he's saying. He's arguing that all of these people being in the market, and buying the stock and everything else, that's not good. And then extends that to this notion that we're going to lose human capital. And we're going to lose it in a similar way, especially for men, that happened to women who sat at home, watched Instagram, and cut themselves. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. And saying basically that men are going to be doing something similar to that because they're going to be looking at stock sites and then they don't know how to play the market, apparently. I don't remember this argument ever being made for anybody else. I just don't. I don't see anything wrong with people playing the market. And fact of the matter is trying to change the rules now that, let's say, the unwashed masses have found a way to get their hands on the fire. Yeah, that's kind of problematic, to put it mildly. But this argument is just very weird, very bizarre, and I don't necessarily think hits it at all. You are basically arguing that people should have better things to do with their time than trying to earn additional money for themselves. I don't know what country you think you live in, but most people are barely making ends meet. And if those people are able to put money in the market with the idea of letting that money grow and they have to spend an hour or so a day in order to make that work, in order to think over their trades and that type of stuff, God bless. I have no issue with that. And I have no idea why you do, or at the very least why you all of a sudden have an issue with it. I'm going to say like, I'm going to say share, and I'm going to say subscribe. That is a trash can perspective in MSNBC. That is a very weird and bizarre trash can perspective. You didn't even get that guy, meaning it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they know how to use the market. It doesn't matter. None of this stuff matters. None of this stuff was an issue until now. People are losing their shirts all the time. Nobody cared. But now it's an issue. Yeah, it's an issue because you and your cronies lost billions. And now you're trying to find a way to legislate a fix for you that won't necessarily injure you, but definitely will adversely affect the smaller buyers in the market. Yeah, that's exactly what's going on. These guys have been crying and belly aching all week. And now the argument goes into this weird spot of, well, I mean, we're going to lose human capital because these guys aren't going to be pumping iron. They're going to be staring at the screen on the stock market, cutting themselves. Like